Tastam Devam Kamsa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagatgurum. As we are approaching the Janmashtami celebrations, which will be held in our center on the 3rd of September, that is Sunday the 3rd September. Though the Janmashtami is at a much later date, that is on 6th or 7th, depending on where you celebrate it. But since there is a important event, the inauguration of our new center in Berlin, in Germany, so we are celebrating the Janmashtami on the Sunday before. Normally, we celebrated it on the Sunday after the Janmashtami celebration to enable more people to attend. So anyway, this will be celebrated in the morning, and the puja and all, everything will be over by 12:30, after which prasad will be served. So the puja begins, the bhajans, the songs and other things will begin by 9:30. So all are requested to participate in the same. Now coming to the 11th chapter. As I said, 11th chapter is very important because Arjuna is yearning for some vision. Till now he considers Krishna to just be his friend, philosopher and guide. But now he has understood that Sri Krishna is no ordinary friend or ordinary guide. He is an incarnation himself. And being an incarnation, he is keen to receive Sri Krishna's grace to enable him to see his divine form. So that is what 11th chapter is all about. It's not just about the Vishwarupa, because people yearn for mystical visions. And as we saw, even the 10th chapter, which was known as Vibhuti Yoga, we saw that it's not just some of the glories of the Lord that we are listing, because Sri Krishna tells Arjuna that it's impossible to enumerate the glory of Ishvara. So we get a glimpse of some of his glories in the Vibhuti Yoga. Vibhuti means glory. And that will enable us to meditate on these. By meditating on these Vibhutis, we try to understand in reality the concept or the real nature of an avatara by his grace. Now, Krishna is listing all these different Vibhutis, and Arjuna is convinced. He has enough faith in his friend, philosopher and guide. But now he wants to see something of his divine form, which is normally not to be seen by our ordinary senses. So the entire gathering was, including Bhishma and other people who have gathered there, they were also great devotees, or they had understood, in fact, the divinity of Sri Krishna. But duty forced them to take sides of the Kaurava army. Because they were duty bound, they just followed their Swadharma. So though they were assembled on the opposite side as enemies, they were still wondering what is going on between Arjuna and Sri Krishna. And Sri Krishna, of course, agrees to the beginning of the 11th chapter. We saw Arjuna is asking, yearning for that vision, and Sri Krishna says, you cannot see this vision through your ordinary eyes. So I'm giving you Divya Chakshu. Divyam Chakshu Dadami. So I will give you the divine, that is subtle vision, through which you can see the subtle form of the subtle universal form of the Lord. So that is what we were discussing till verse number 27. And verse 28, now he saw many things, as I told you. It was not only the pleasant side of the Lord or the beautiful side of God that he saw the terrible side as well, because according to Indian philosophy, reality has to be accepted in totality. You can't say I'll have only the good things for myself or the pleasant things and avoid the evil things. So to support that particular philosophy, which is in fact not just a philosophy, it's a truth of life. So Arjuna is shown the terrible form as well. And that is what is now being continued in verse number 28. He says, Yatha nadinam baho ambu vegaha samudram eva abhimukad dravanti tatha tavami naraloka vira vishanti vaktrani abhijwalanti. So it's a very horrible sight that Sri Krishna is showing to Arjuna. He says, just as Yatha means just like, many torrents of rivers rush towards the vast ocean. So also all these heroes that you say assembled here on both sides, in the world of men, they are flinging themselves into your fiercely flaming mouths. Means that's the vision as described by Arjuna. He is trying to express what he is seeing through the divine grace of Sri Krishna and the divine vision that has been endowed, that has been bestowed upon him. He is trying to describe what he actually sees. And you can imagine, like torrents of water flowing into the ocean, this vast multitude of soldiers, relatives, friends, brothers, cousins. So he can literally see them entering the huge mouth of Sri Krishna, the universal form of Vishwarupa, of Sri Krishna. And they see that in his flaming mouth, all these heroes, they're all heroes, Naraloka Veera, heroes in the world of men. They're not ordinary soldiers. They're not people who are just ordinary soldiers. They are all great heroes. So even they will be entering this fiercely flaming mouth that's been compared to an ocean. And they are all entering. So the rivers that emerge from the mountains, they have no other alternative. Here the example is given just to show that it's not that the rivers want to join the ocean, but because they are flowing by gravity towards the ocean, which is at a much lower level, they are literally forced to empty themselves. Though they would like to, even if they want to stop the flow of the river, you can't. It just goes and merges into the ocean. So the time or Kala is devouring all the people. So Arjuna is given a glimpse of what is going to happen, the consequences of war. So the rulers of the earth, normally, the point that Sri Krishna wants to convey is, everything that you are fighting for is temporary. This may be your fate. Somebody else may die in your through your hands, or you may die through their hands. But this is the inevitable fate of everyone. The Kala means time, is devouring everything. So that's a figurative way of explaining how the flame is devouring the people who are going to be killed on the battlefield. So most of them, those who have assembled there, they have not assembled there to die. They have assembled there to dominate over the earth. What's the war all about? To dominate over the earth. So all the rulers, all the great people who are powerful, they think that their existence is to dominate over the world. But how long they can do it, it is a debatable question. So Arjuna is shown that no matter which side you fight for, ultimately many of you, or almost most of you, will be devoured by time. And they are, as it were, caught in that death trap of destiny. So every one of us, it's a figurative way of telling that we are all traveling towards death. So though the planning is to conquer others and enjoy the kingdom, but it may not happen for all of you. So that's the idea. And in fact, he sees that the only consequence of life, or this power or struggle for life, struggle for domination, struggle for more wealth, struggle for all the things of the world which we think are permanent, it will finally end with death. That is the harsh reality. That's the philosophy that is being conveyed by Sri Krishna to Arjuna. Then, but these scenes in the 11th chapter, they are the visions, or they are the visions which Arjuna sees, and he is describing it. Obviously, there's one more person who is able to see this, and that is Sanjaya, because he is narrating the whole thing to Dhritarashtra, who cannot obviously see, was blind. So in the 29th verse, the next verse, it still continues how destruction takes place. So in the beginning, there were wonderful sights of the Lord with so many weapons and huge universal form. And even that terrified Arjuna, but now he's getting more and more terrified. And ultimately, you'll see he's asking the Lord to withdraw that form. He says, this thing is too much for me, even though he was pestering him for this vision. We remember a similar thing happened in the life of Sri Ramakrishna when Hriday, because he was watching many of the other disciples having wonderful visions and expressing. So he was thinking, I'm serving Sri Ramakrishna for such a long time, and why is he denying me all these visions? The others seem to be delighting in the visions of their Ishta Devata and other spiritual experiences, and I'm getting nothing. So Sri Ramakrishna tells him, those are not very important. You just continue what you are doing, you'll get everything just by this wonderful service that you are doing. But he was not convinced. So he used to say, Mama, you have to give me. And so he just pestered him so much. Then one day Sri Ramakrishna said, okay. So he just went and touched his chest. As soon as he touched his chest, he suddenly saw the whole universe vanishing, and himself and Sri Ramakrishna, only two, one big light and a small light. He saw both were converted into a form of bright light. And practically he was afraid that I'm losing my existence. Am I dying? But after that, he suddenly realized that there is great joy in this vision, and he was thinking that now we are free from the bondage of the body. So the sudden realization came to him. And though he was still in the body and he was still conscious, but this vision overwhelmed him, and he just shouted, oh, what are we doing here in this wretched world? Because till he had this vision, he was so much after money. He was just running after rich people who used to come to Ramakrishna, because that was his main occupation. And Sri Ramakrishna knew that he's too much attached to the world. So he did not think he was fit for this vision. But since he forced, he said, okay, have it. And when he really had it, he thought, everything that I hold dear is vanishing. But at the same time, he felt so much of joy that he said, what are we doing here in this wretched world of this pain and all those things? Let us all go all over the world, universe, praising the glory of the Lord. Such was the power of the vision. And he started shouting. Sri Ramakrishna obviously knew that he is not able to digest this vision. So then he said, why are you creating such a big commotion? Because these spiritual visions which come, they temporarily, maybe they overwhelm the aspirant if he is not prepared. So if one is prepared, then one will not panic or maybe just be overjoyed and overwhelmed and just start shouting. So he said, what is all this? I see so many visions. I don't shout like all and jump about like you're doing. So he just said, I'm taking back. And he again touches his chest and said, go back to your original state. And suddenly he goes back to the state from which he had this wonderful vision. And he did not repent, though he felt that vision could have continued. But then he panicked a little bit and was overwhelmed. So then he said, okay, you just don't bother about this vision. Keep on doing what you are doing, and the right time you will have the experience. So similarly, we'll see here, all these things are now slowly gathering momentum. And Arjuna, he began with a wonderful vision, which was pleasant to perceive, pleasant to understand, pleasant to even experience. But now, seeing all this, he's slowly getting a little bit panicky. So he says the next 29th verse, he's expressing. Still, he has not been overwhelmed. He's getting higher and higher visions, more and more, you may say, terrible visions. So he says, Yatha pradiptam jwalanam patanga vishanti nashaya samudhavega tathaiva nashaya vishanti lokas tu api vaktrani samruddhavega tava api vaktrani samruddhavega. Means, he says another vision which is also indicative of certain great truths of life. He says, just as moths, the different moths rush headlong into a blazing fire. If you have seen, if there is a blazing fire, a lot of insects, they are attracted by the light. But unfortunately, along with the light, there is this fire, the burning power. They don't realize that. And they just rush towards that blazing fire and they get burned and they die. So also, he sees all these great warriors, just as they were going in that huge mouth of the Lord, Ishvara. He says, just as moths rush headlong, patangaha means moths, vishanti, they enter to be destroyed. So do these creatures, I mean creatures in the sense, human beings, the warriors, hurriedly speed into your mouths for their destruction. So, to make it clear that, you see, it's a totally different experience when the waters of the ocean, just to distinguish between that and this, Sri Krishna is giving this particular vision. Because when the waters merge in the ocean, they may lose their identity, but the water is still there. It's part of that bigger, that huge ocean. Whereas here, the jiva hood of the insect, I mean, this particular is destroyed. So the rivers continue, I mean, the fresh water that flows into the river or in the ocean, it continues its, maybe for some time at least, the salinity of the water near the mouth, if you see, it's partially saline. So these huge freshwater rivers, when they enter, they retain their identity till they are totally merged with the salinity of the ocean. But they still retain some identity, whereas here, moths rush only to perish. And multitudes are coming. So that destruction, which in the gross is necessary to, I mean, it's a cosmic necessity or a cosmic reality. So, but the redemption, or how are they redeemed? It's by the destruction of the old gross. As Sri Krishna explained in a previous chapter, that just as one changes clothes, when the clothes are torn or old, we just throw them and wear new clothes. So also that redemption, he will speak later of the redemption, how when the time comes for the destruction of the gross, because of the evil, that the preponderance of evil in that jiva, because the karma comes to a stage where this body is no longer fit to work out the karma. So it has to be destroyed. So that is what death is all about. If you see the Kathopanishad also, when the jiva finds that he can no longer work out the karma, then he takes up a new body, but he continues his spiritual practice from where he left. And that was one of the important questions Arjuna asks in an earlier chapter, because he is worried if everything ends with death, maybe all our wealth, all the property and everything might be left behind. But will all my spiritual practices be left behind? So Arjuna asks this question, what happens to my yoga? What happens to all the sadhana that I do, upasana? So Krishna immediately tells him, no, it's not like leaving your house and property and the wealth behind. Those things obviously you can't carry with you. You have to leave. However painful it may be, you have to leave everything behind. Because the gross goes along with the gross. But when you lose the gross body, there's nothing you can take with you. all the gross things remain behind. That's common. But the spiritual progress that you make, the sadhana that you do, that gives you another opportunity in a new body, depending on how much, what you have achieved in this life. That is why they say it's so important to use this life properly and see that at least till you die. That's why in the Upanishads they say Shatayu Bhava, aspire to live for 100 years, not to enjoy, but to do more sadhana so that you are born under better circumstances in the next birth. So nothing is going to be lost. Any good action or any sadhana that you do, Sri Krishna assures Arjuna in a previous chapter that nothing is going to be lost. You will be either born in a family of yogis or spiritual people, or maybe a wealthy family where you don't have to struggle for wealth. You can focus on spirituality. So now, but still, the scene, the terrible scene is still continuing till Arjuna says, now the enough is enough. Now you just stop. I have understood reality. So the next is the all-pervading aspect of Vishnu that is being shown here. Leli yase grasamaha manaha samanta lokan samantat lokan samagran vadanai jwaladbhihi tejobi apurya jagat samagram bhasat tava ugraha pratapanti Vishnoh. So Leliyase means, Leliya, the literal meaning is that huge tongue of yours. Now, first it was the symbology that was used as tongues of fire were just gobbling up all these people. But now it is, he is just devouring all these people, as it were, on all sides, not just one side. Lokan, all the worlds, not just individual humans, but whole worlds are just merging, something like a black hole. So the very concept of black hole is based on that creation, when it reaches its ultimate limit, it suddenly collapses and enters, as it were, all these worlds go there. Even gravity cannot escape. It just enters into a concept, it in a space known as black hole, and the huge universe has just collapsed into that black hole. So something similar to that here, Samagran, all with your various mouths, as it was described in the earlier verse, there are thousands of mouths. They are all flaming and everything with radiance. Tejobihi, apurya, filling the whole world with light. And rays, that ugraha, rays, but burning rays, not just mild rays or pleasant to perceive. They are burning. O Vishnu. Vishnu means the all-pervading. Vishnu, world itself means one who is all-pervading. So he pervades the whole universe. So if he pervades, then he is not just responsible for creation, but at the same time, whatever is created, universes are created, but they are destroyed at the same time in some other part of the universe. So that's why the idea of multiverse has come. A universe may be growing in some part of the whole, multiverse, but there are certain places where everything is collapsing into these black holes. So that is the cyclic form of the Lord. That is what he is showing. At this juncture, the Lord appears to Arjuna as a destructive force. So now he is totally fed up of, out of fear or desolation, he just prays to the Lord in verse 31. Akyai meko bhavanugra rupo, means you, Bhavan means you. Thou have told me this ugra rupa, terrible. Namaha astu te devavaras prasida. Please have mercy on me. Now enough is enough. This is too much for me. Vignatum. Now I want to know. Vignatum ichhami bhavantam adyam. I want to know your origin. I don't want to know your present. You have shown me the creative form. You have shown how vast your Vishwarupa, his universal form is, and how you are a creator, preserver, and destroyer of the whole created universe. But I'm not interested. I want the source. That's what the Upanishads are all about. And the Gita also points to that. I want to see what is your origin. Adyam. I just want to see where was your origin, and I want to merge with that. I do not that I do not know what is the purpose behind all this Prakriti. So now he is fed up, though he is part of this Prakriti. He sees the creation, he sees the preservation, and sees the destruction. And he says, now let me go back to the source. I think it's much more peaceful there. So tell me who you are in essence. You are not this. These are all your different forms. You are so fierce in form. I bow down to you, Prasida, means I bow down to you, O God Supreme. Please have mercy on me. I desire to know you, the primal one, as you were in the beginning of creation, before creation. I do not know your purpose. So that is the essence of the whole spiritual life. We begin from Om, or we begin from the purest, uncreated Brahman or existence. And then there comes a phase when, as it were, you have to remember this Parama Prakriti becomes Prakriti, or the nature, and plays a role of creation, preservation, and destruction, which is also known as Shakti. But all the same, the Purusha or the pure consciousness remains as it is. It's like a movie which is projected on a screen. You see the screen, but suddenly things appear, and there's so much of action going on when this projection is seen on the screen, and suddenly the movie comes to an end, and you just see the plain screen. So this is a very crude way of explaining how Sri Krishna or Arjuna is trying to request Krishna. He said, I've seen your drama, the portion that is terrible, all these things, and I don't even know why you are creating, and then you yourself are destroying. This is something I don't want to know, because I do not know your purpose. All I know is it's terrible to look at, and I'm fed up of that. This so fierce form, I don't want to see that. You just have mercy on me and tell me your origin. So it is very natural. You see the calm and the charming and the beautiful form. Nobody worships God the terrible. Though Swami Vivekananda says, you can't have the charming and the beautiful form of God and ignore his terrible form. So he was a bit, tough to understand, because he says one who sees and is the same in seeing both the beautiful and the terrible form, and who is not disturbed by either of the two, he alone can have the vision of God. That is what. But for most of the devotees, the charming, the calm, they want to see God in the beautiful form they have imagined, and being drawn to him, they are drawn to him like Gopala. People want to see him as Krishna, the young one, who is so tender, so sweet, untouched by misery. So this is how devotional worship proceeds. So, but his terrific form or the terrible form attracts the attention of the devotee in another way. Another way in the sense, when he matures, when his devotion matures, he knows that in spite of worshipping the mild form, the charming form, the beautiful form, sometimes God assumes the destructive form. That is why in the Hindu philosophy, or maybe Hindu way of worship, we worship everyone. We worship Durga, we worship Kali the terrible, we worship Shiva the destroyer, we worship Vishnu the preserver, or the preserver, and Brahma is the creator. So there are different aspects of the same reality. Though we begin with the charming, the beautiful, and the pleasant form of God, but our total realization is complete when all the other forms are also accepted. though we may not like to see them. So, the fully qualified devotee, according to this Gita, is one who accepts both the sublime and the terrific aspects of God. If you accept Prakriti, you have to accept both. You can't say my life will always be smooth, because that is not the reality that we see. No matter if we try to make it smooth, try to make it happy, try to make it as joyful as possible, but then things do not work the way we want it to be. So as spiritual maturity comes, then we see both the sublime and the terrible. That's the essence of this verse. He says, I have seen the other side of your other side of reality, but now you please withdraw it because it's getting too much for me. So show me that form. Neither do I want to see the pleasant form now, because I know if I accept that, I have to accept the terrible form. But show me, just go, let us go back to the source and show me what you are in reality. So the Ishvara, who is everything in different stages, as a preserver or as a creator, the preserver and destroyer. But Arjuna now has realized that I have to accept all these aspects. So I may be involved in one of these aspects as I mature in my spiritual life. But ultimate goal is to realize God in reality as He is. So Sri Ramakrishna is to give a beautiful example, though we can understand that it is a very difficult parable of Sri Ramakrishna to understand. He tells it in such a beautiful way, though it is a very simple parable. Obviously, it is not a real thing, but it conveys certain ideas. He once told a group of devotees, you know how God is like. How to know God, you need a lot of maturity. Then he says, say, God is like a person who is dyeing clothes. Now there is a huge tub, and this person who was dyeing clothes, people approached him because they knew they wanted to dye their white cloth or whichever color it was in a particular color. So they used to come and said, I want the cloth to be dyed red. So he used to dip it in that tub and give it back. And then somebody would come and said, I want to dye it green. And surprisingly, he would, obviously that is not practically possible, but anyway, in this story it is possible. So and he was a special person, so naturally he could do that. And he takes the same white cloth and he says, okay, you want green? Okay, dips it, gives the green cloth. And then somebody else says, I want blue, I want yellow. And there was a wise man. That is, we are coming to that wisdom which Arjuna is showing. Till now, he is just seeing the Lord showing all the different colors. But he is wise, like Arjuna is in this case. He sees, oh, the Ishvara is playing a lot of tricks. That's what the person who was dying in that parable, dyeing the cloth, he was doing this, and one person was just observing. So he said, let me just now know the truth, what this person who's dyeing this cloth is up to. So he gives the cloth and he asks him, the Lord asks, the person who's dyeing asks him, which color do you want me to dye your cloth in? He says, I have no preference. You just dye my cloth in the color of the dye that is in the tub. So he was very intelligent. He knew this is some great mystery. I don't want to dye in a particular way. Dye the cloth either red or green. If I ask that, the Lord can do it for me. So similarly, Arjuna has come to a state when he sees, oh, you are the wonderful person. You create these worlds, you create people. And then one fine day you kill them and you destroy everything, the gross. Then the subtle body goes and takes up another body. So I don't want one particular life or one particular attitude. I want to know who you are in reality. Then the Lord explains in verse 32 to 34, the real nature. Of course, it is difficult to explain through words, but Krishna now understands Sri Bhagavan Vacha means he is replying. When Arjuna says, just show me what color is your dye. I mean, you dye it in the color that you have in the tub. That means you show me your real form. I want to see your good form. You show me the good form. Then you showed me the evil form, terrible form, which some people may worship. They worship all sorts of gods, Ishvara, in different forms, the way they want. For some, he is a terrible soldier. He is a very powerful god who kills other people, like Parshurama and others. For some, he may be Bal Gopala, the very calm and pleasant to look at child. So there are so many aspects. So I don't want to worship you in any of these aspects. I want to know you, who you are in reality. So that is why, if you see the tomorrow, of course, we will be discussing the Great Master, Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. In the Great Master, there is a beautiful verse in the introduction. Swami Sarvasthananda says, Sri Krishna tells people, I mean, tells Arjuna, and through Arjuna, all of us, that the goal of your life is to know me in reality. What I am in reality. That should be your goal. That is what Arjuna is asking. Not what you want. You may ask, go God, I want you just show me your form as Lakshmi, because I am attached to wealth. So I'll worship Lakshmi because I think worshipping Lakshmi will give me wealth. Or I'll worship some Durga, she will protect me from all my undertakings. So I worship certain aspects of the Lord. But that way you won't understand the Lord. To understand Sri Ramakrishna, he quotes that verse from the Gita, where he says, you have to understand the divine life and understand it as he is. That is what Krishna now is explaining, what he is in reality. He's trying to explain, of course, that has to be realized, that has to be experienced. But Arjuna at least has come to this stage. So, Sri Bhagavan Vacha, Kalosmi, now he is giving a slight hint. He is not directly explaining what he is. He says, I am embodied as time in these two verses. So, Kalo Asmi, Kala, I am the Kala. Now, what he means by that, we'll come to that. Kalo Asmi Loka Kshaya Krit Pravruddho Lokan Samahartum Iha Pravruttah Ritepi Tvam Na Bhavishanti Sarve Eva Sthita Pratya Nikeshu Yodhaha. Means he says, I come to everyone as Kala. What is that? Kala means Kala Asmi. I am the all world destroying time. He's slowly taking him, explaining to him what he is in reality. Of course, this is not the final word, but he says, I am the world destroying Kala. I am not just a physical figure or a physical form, the universal form that you see. Behind that, I come in the form of time. What is this time? Pravruddha, mighty. Lokan. Lokakshayakrit. Lokakshayakrit means world destroying, mighty. So mighty that it can destroy worlds in an instant. Samahartum, to destroy. I am engaged here. Without api, without this, you cannot live. I mean, what he says is, even without, without your presence also, you don't think you are going to kill somebody or somebody is going to kill. I have already killed them. Even without you, the warriors who are arrayed in different different ways. Everybody is thinking that he will live, but whether you wish or not, whether it's not that because you will, they will die, they have already been destroyed. Because I, Kala, it's the Lord who is destroying everyone. So, he's telling, I am the world destroying time, Kala. That is one. Also is known as one of the names of Shiva, especially if you go to the famous temple of Ujjain. So there Shiva is known as Mahakala. Mahakala means the great time. He divorced. That's why Ujjain, people find it so strange that the whole of Ujjain, that Shivalinga has to be decorated and cleaned, not by water. They may wash the Shivlinga which of the previous day, early morning. They clean it with ashes, bhasma. So where will they get the bhasma? Some soul who has died, and they say there is not a single day in and around Ujjain where nobody dies. Somebody or the other dies. And they consider it to be a privilege to, the families. The ashes are taken, and early morning, they are just waiting for the fresh ashes. And the Shivalinga, the huge Shivalinga, that is smeared with these ashes. So in that temple, or in that Shiva temple, he is known as Mahakala. So that is what Sri Krishna is saying, I am the Mahakala. So what is the significance? Now Arjuna has understood that in nature, everybody gets buried in time. So relentlessly, as Mahakala, he is consuming everything. The Lord is consuming everything. So similarly, this time himself, one of the aspects, or one of the aspects, if you can call it, of Ishvara is the all-devouring time. That is one. And Arjuna is by saying that I do not know the purpose, because why will everything be consumed? He says, I don't want to know the purpose. But if I see before my own eyes that we have all gathered here, we do not know how many of us will die. Death is in fact taking place ceaselessly. So Arjuna is not able to understand the implication of this huge war that is going to take place. Though he has prepared for that, but everybody has come prepared thinking that he will win and he will live and others will die. So anyway, the Lord tells him, don't worry, it is not they who have decided, nor you who will decide who will live and who they have already been killed by time. I have come in the form of time and killed these people. They have all died. So then, anticipating a doubt in Arjuna's mind that if everything you have decided, if you have already, the consequences of the war have been predestined and you have decided everything, then why are you asking me to fight and make me a scapegoat? Because he in the first chapter, you say he wanted to take the first opportunity to escape from this war. Having himself come prepared to fight, now out of fear or many other reasons, he just wants to escape because he is terrified of the consequences of the war. And then he says, okay, you say that you have already killed, as Kala you have destroyed whomsoever you have decided, they have all gone. They are going to die. So if everything is predestined, then why it is necessary for me to engage in this carnage and get involved in this? So that is why he says, he anticipating this doubt, Sri Krishna can anticipate what Arjuna is going to ask him. So before that he says, therefore, tasmat tvam uttishta yasho labasva. He is anticipating that now, if I tell him too much, he will say, then I will withdraw, I will not fight. But he wants him to fight. That is why he says, tasmat tvam uttishta yasho labasva jitva shatrun bhungshva rajyam samruddham mayeveti nihata purvameva nimitta matram bhava samvyasachin. This is 33rd verse, is a wonderful philosophy. What is our role in life? If everything is predestination, then what is the need? Is there anything known as free will? Should we have some free will? Should we try to do anything at all? Or should we just give up? So he says, no, you have to fight. Why? Tasmat, therefore, anticipating that Arjuna will question him and ask him that, please let me just retire and go away from this. No, tasmat, that is why. Because I have already devoured everyone, you fight. But how? How to fight, that is more important. You have to fight. There's no other way. Because he is ordering, the Lord is ordering, you have to fight. But how? Uttishta, stand up. Maybe you fight for fame, because that's why you have come here, to conquer the enemy. You have not come here to just play a sport here. You have come here because you want to conquer, you want to earn some name and fame, and all this effort that you have, training that you have undergone, you became such a great warrior just to defeat these people. So attain fame, yasho labasva, having conquered the enemies who are in front of you, enjoy the kingdom. It appears very strange. Why is Sri Krishna telling? On one side, he is so pessimistic. He said, anyway, everyone will die. On another side, he says, you fight and enjoy the kingdom, because all these people who see or who are going to die have already been slain. There's nothing you can do. You have to just follow my will. I mean, he indirectly says, you surrender to my will and just do. They have already been slain. Nihataha purvam eva. I have already destroyed them. But what is your role in this? Don't think that you are doing something or you are gaining a victory. Don't let the ego come. Means this is not just a question of killing or getting killed. It's a question of how one ought to do duty. What's the attitude with which we are supposed to work? So he says, Nimitta matram bhava savya sachin. Savya sachin means one who can, he was famous, actually it means left-handed. Savya sachin means left-handed, but Arjuna was supposed to be left-handed. He could do everything left-handed as well as, they say, right-handed. So Savyasachin means one who can fight, play any sport or do everything, both left-handed and right-handed. But Savyasachin normally it means, left-handed one. So he is addressing Arjuna as Savyasachin. So he says, arise and obtain fame, fight this war, and if you win, enjoy this kingdom, because all the people who are going to die have been slain by me already. Be just an outward cause. So the Lord's work, this is a great teaching. When we come to the last chapter of the Gita, the same thing is repeated in a different verse. So here the Lord is trying to tell that the agency of human being, the stupid or the little ego of man who thinks, I have done this, I have done that. Because you got an opportunity, be grateful to the Lord. You try to fight, and if possible, you may win. I have decided that, but you become, what is the attitude with which you should work? You have to be nimitta matra. Nimitta means just be an instrument. Just be an instrument. There's so much of joy. Even Mahapurush Maharaj used to say that he gave a wonderful example when he became the president of the order. In 1926, there was a beautiful event which was organized, because all one by one, Brahmananji, everybody was passing away. So Swami Shivananda, who was the second president after the passing away of Brahmananda, somebody suggested to him, before all the direct disciples pass away, let us hold a convention of all the monks. Let them come here. So that is the first general convention, not only monks, but devotees. So it was known as the first world convention of Ramakrishna order of monks, because Mahapurush Maharaj was still alive. And he was asked to give the presidential speech. So he said, how one can, because in the Ramakrishna order, we are all supposed to be following this particular attitude, that you be the instrument. It's not that the privilege that has been given to you, it's because the Lord wants the privilege to give you the privilege. You just don't be egotistic about it, that you are doing this or you are winning the war. In this case, Arjuna is being told, you just fight, just as an instrument. So Mahapurush Maharaj, when they said, as a president, he said, what can I speak? I will just, he spoke it's a very famous speech, very short and famous. So he says, he gave a beautiful example. Just like he gave the example in a blacksmith's shop. In those days, traditional blacksmiths would heat some iron or steel, and they'll take it from the furnace and keep it on the anvil, and then take a very big hammer, I mean steel hammer, and then hit the mold, try to mold that heated strip and shape it to whichever shape uh, they want. So he says, you be like that anvil. I mean, the anvil is supposed to take the blows, though the blacksmith actually hits the hot iron rod or whatever thing has been put in the furnace to shape it, he gives a blow. So naturally, the anvil has to suffer a lot, because though it is not getting molded, but it gets all the blows. So he says, be like the anvil. So it's such a beautiful example. He says, be like that anvil. And this is what Sri Krishna is telling here, that you just be an instrument. Don't bother, because I have done everything. So whatever you have to do, whatever good and bad, leave it everything to me. I'll take the consequences if you act as an instrument. He says the anvil is not bothered if the hammer doesn't fall on the right place. It may fall somewhere else, it may not. The anvil says, I'm just there. Whatever strokes you give, I'll bear everything and keep quiet. So the anvil doesn't grumble or curse or complain if the hammer doesn't fall on the right place. Wherever it falls, whether it molds that, shapes that molten, the hot iron properly or not, it is not bothered. It is just, his role is to just give the support. He says, nor does the hammer bother. It's only the thing which is getting hit. It matters only to that particular heated rod or strip. The consequences are not important for both, either the hammer or the anvil. So he says, you have to be like the anvil of the blacksmith, who does not fret or fume or does not complain if the stroke is not proper, nor does the hammer be like that hammer who does its job, but how flat it makes or what shape it gives, it's not bothered. It does its job, the anvil does its job, and in the process, the hot strip gets molded. So that's why, that is through that example, what he said was, each one has been called upon to do a particular duty depending on the station of life he is in. And we have to do it and just not complain about things going wrong. If the hammer hits in the wrong place, it's not the problem of the anvil. Anvil is just ready to take the blows, whichever way the blacksmith hits. And so also the hammer. It's only going to affect the thing which is in between. So that's what he says. Man may try to propose something. As they say, man proposes, but God disposes. So let God decide. So the work of the Lord, what he says here, Sri Krishna says, the work of the Lord or Ishvara does not depend on the agency of man. Man may wish for so many things, that things should go this way or that way. But then the right attitude is, just be neutral like that anvil, or just be neutral like that hammer. Just be disconcerted. That is the secret of this verse. You merely be a nimitta matra bhava savya sachin. But there is a reason why the savya sachin word is used. Because you see, Arjuna, if they say if his right hand failed, he would use the left hand if that angle was good. He was such an expert that he could shoot with his left hand. And they say he was more, skilled using his left hand. Normally, people are right-handed, but you will find very few people left-handed as well, or maybe they may be having skills of the left hand. But Savya Sachin literally means one left-handed one, and most of the shots, or most of the, because he was an archer, And they said he could defeat the enemy because of this skill. Whenever it suited him, he could use the left hand and uh, uh, shower the arrows. So anyway, he says, because you are ambidextrous, they call them ambidextrous, if you can use both hands. So you are an ambidextrous person. I've made you an excellent instrument. You just fight. That's what you have to do. Okay. So if there are some questions you can ask, because verse number 34, he is giving some specific instances where the Lord is reducing the tension of Arjuna, because Arjuna is already tense. So just telling him, you just be an instrument, relax and just do your duty. I will take care of the consequences. So how? In verse 34, 35, 36, he will explain some of the people who are going to die, they will die. You may be very sad because some of them are your own teacher, somebody who taught you, your own cousins, your own uncle, your own grandfathers. But don't worry because I have killed them. So he's taking away all that uh, guilt from his mind, and he relieves him of the apprehension that he may have to kill these people. He said, you are an instrument. Just do what I say and everything will be fine. Yeah. Any question? Yes.
In the beginning of the talk, we said Kala.
Kala.
And in the quote, asked him that he is Krishna.
Kalo Asmi. Asmi means I am. Mahakala.
So in regard to the mid-age mind, and when you are trying to be steady, but not, very steady, then like this Satya Satyam, you are not.
Savyasachin.
Whichever way the blows come, you are not even depending even on the timing of things. The time you are free from that also. If you are
Yes, that is what he.
How does that fit in with the God?
No, the Savyasachin and Kala, they are not connected, because that is.
But if you were
No, Krishna is not connecting these two. Exactly. So here, because why he's calling him, he's praising him actually by calling him Savyasachin. There are many names of Arjuna. Partha, Gudakesha means one who has conquered sleep. He was famous for many things. Arjuna was not an ordinary warrior. So just to just inspire him, because he was demoralized. So he's just praising him. Oh, you are like this, you are like that. So Savyasachin is one of the qualities he's reminding Arjuna to tell him that you can fight, you can really fight, and you can fight better than other people, because you are a proper instrument. You just be an instrument. Don't be under the impression that you are going to kill anybody or you are defeating the army. I have already done it for you. You become an instrument. So to be an instrument has nothing to do with his talent. He can do it in a better way because he is a better instrument. That is what he's. Don't confuse the Savyasachin with Kala. Kala is for all. No, we can't.
kind of not to take it into account.
Yeah, see, when you work as an. Yes, then time vanishes. Yes. Exactly. The timelessness, you can get a glimpse when you are totally absorbed or during meditation. That is what we do. We will come to that later. Here is Kala for whom? For people who are busy, who are.
So that concept of color as a God
Oh.
or something is.
No, Kala is God. Kala is the ultimate reality of the changing world. But as you say, since he is Mahakala, we can definitely attain a state where we enter the timelessness. Time stops when you meditate. Timelessness, but that is the goal. That is the state which you attain. Now, Arjuna has not yet reached that.
For those who don't want to remain
No. That is see, he is giving certain tendencies. In Kali Yuga, Annagata Prana means people are more dependent on food. It's a fact. It's not that everybody is dependent on food. Otherwise, how did he manage? He used to eat one sandesh at night and so much of less food he required. That's not a general rule. But in general, he said, just as in Satya Yuga and other yugas, people could fast for hours and days together and live on water. That kind of body or body constitution people will not have in this age. That is what is. But he doesn't say that everybody will have. Pavari Baba was there, which Swamiji wanted to imitate. He could live only on water and air, in fact, not even water. So Pavahari means one who took, for whom? Oh yeah, that's why they say, no, Thakur, in fact, Swamiji says, after the birth of Thakur, Satya Yoga has started. So now he has come. If you meditate on him, all these limitations of Kali Yuga, so there is a beautiful, I forgot that stotra where he says, he has come to destroy the effects of Kali Yuga. Sri Ramakrishna, a new Satya Yuga has been born. For whom? For those who really aspire for the highest. Not because Kali Yuga's nature is, it is based on food, it is based on greed, it's based on many things which make it more difficult for aspirants to practice sadhana. That's why he's warning that in this Kali Yuga, even if you make some mistakes, that's why he says, in this Kali Yuga, my mother says, mental sin is no sin. In other yugas, even a bad thought was dangerous. But Holy Mother says, in this Kali Yuga, it is so polluted. So mental sin is no sin. That's something very great she has told. Because mentally you can't, you are being bombed day and night with so many impressions, so many vibrations. So now and then if you get a bad thought, my Holy Mother was assuring, because some of the devotees, they were so sensitive that they felt that, oh, I had such evil thoughts when I meditate, so many evil and negative thoughts come, what shall I do? So she says, don't worry, in this Kali Yuga, that's also a positive thing she's telling, in this Kali Yuga, just like you, it is Annagata Prana, my man is bound by material things, gross things. He needs food to live. But at the same time, in this yuga, if somebody commits some sin or some evil thought comes in the subtle plane, it's not going to affect. So sadhana has become easy also at the same time. Similarly, with this Kala, though we know it is there, but worshipping Kala itself, worshipping Mahakala, that is why they worship, because it gives you a wonderful insight or maturity. When you see time devouring everything, no matter how much you try, you can't stop time. You can't stop aging. You can't stop death. We're all marching. That is what he's saying, Arjuna, that you don't worry, I've already killed all the people who are going to be killed. Some of them will die in the battle, some of them will die later, but all of them have been killed. You are just an instrument. So if you fight with that attitude, you will, what he says indirectly, he's going to say it later, that one has to enter that, if you are an instrument, you are timeless. That state which you are, if you are detached, then where is the time? That's why when Swami Vivekananda, when he was traveling in a train, tram, and in America as well as in London, the people were worried who were escorting him. Said, Swami, you'll miss the train, you'll miss that train, you'll miss this train. So one day he got disgusted. Every time, why are you pushing me? I'm just, let me be. See, I do not live in time, I live in eternity. That's a very significant statement. He said, you people may be rushing after time because time is, you're devoured by time, everything is based on time. But I live in a timeless world. So one train gone means I'll take the next train. I just don't want you to rush me. Because he was in his own mood, you see, when he was in a very high state of mind, no matter which train he missed, he will not be bothered. Any question?
There are two questions. See if we can do quickly.
Hmm.
Did Arjuna see himself in the square universal cosmic form? If so, was it duality or not?
Whether Arjuna saw, he definitely will come to those verses after this. Definitely he did not know his destiny. Otherwise, it is very difficult. God does not show you. Somebody was saying that it would, how nice it would be if we could see our future. I don't think it's a very good idea to see our future, especially if it is going to be bad. It is better off that that suspense still stays. Then at least we can enjoy. You know that famous incident where somebody was told he's going to die after such a time. He stopped, the king stopped ruling because he was obsessed with the fact that I'm going to die. So it may not be, I think even if the Lord would not be foolish enough to show him whether he's going to die and when he is going to die, he just showed him that innumerable souls, because Kala or time is devouring all of them. The question was, did Arjuna see? I'll repeat the question what Gaurav asked. I mean, somebody has asked in the chat that whether Arjuna saw himself, the consequences of the battle, what he is going to achieve after the end of the battle. No, obviously no. Yeah.
The attitude in our life should be like hammer or anvil. Please explain.
Both. That Swami Shivananda is giving that example because you see the instrument, they are the instruments of shaping the hot iron. After it is put in the furnace, that is kept on the anvil. And you see, both, the idea is that you be an instrument. What happens, don't bother what happens. You do your duty. Of course, the blacksmith has to hit use the hammer properly, and the anvil also has to be strong. If it just gives up or breaks, so you have to be like the anvil, and you also have to be like both. Both are instruments in shaping the destiny, our own destiny and others' destiny. Yeah.
Question from previous chapter 3. So in
Chapter 10.
3, Vitama Yoga.
Oh, you are asking from
Yeah,
3.
that's
Okay.
a general question. Right?
Okay.
So chapter 3, so basically in verse 27, Sri Krishna says that the Prakriti
Kriyamanani, Gunekar.
Ankara Vimudatma
Hmm.
So in that, if the action is being done in the realm of Prakriti, then how can we relate that to the words of the Master in the Gospel, where he says that everything is God's will, that all action is God's will, and then so how, because if everything has happened by Prakriti and we as a pure consciousness as Sakshi, we don't have anything to do with that, how can we relate that to the
No. That is when the ego is still there. See, everything is God's will. That is when you realize that. But Thakur also, Sri Ramakrishna, the question Pinake is asking here is, in the 3rd chapter of the Gita, there is a verse which says, Prakriti Kriyamanani, Gunai Karmani Sarvasha, means all the actions that we do, it is because of our past karma and our guna. So guna and karma determine, the guna and karma of the Prakriti of an individual determine what he does and what he does not do. So then, because that, only a fool will attach himself to this action. That means Sri Krishna is telling, don't be a fool and just get carried away by your guna and karma. Just try to detach yourself as much as possible and look at all your actions and your motives and the reactions, everything in a very calm way. So that is one way of, the same thing is being replied here. But the question is now, in Gospel, Sri Ramakrishna in one place says, everything happens by the mother's will. Who are you to do? So if that is true, that he has said from one standpoint, that everything happens by mother's will. But at the same time, he gives an example of that cow. It's one of the best examples which Swami Vivekananda said, I can keep on explaining the significance of this for days together. And he in fact said this is one of the best examples of Sri Ramakrishna. The cow, he was just casually I mean, it was such a casual example with so much of depth of meaning. He says, suppose there is a cow and it has a rope tied to the post, and the owner of the cow or he knows how much of what is the capacity of the cow to eat, how much grass it can eat. So it has a fixed radius, it can move around that. It's tied to the post, so naturally it cannot go, it cannot escape, but it can eat within that limit of the length of the rope will permit it to go and eat all the grass or consume all the grass in that limited diameter or that circle. But he said, if your karma merits it, means when God gives us a sort of free will, though it is free, it's free only within this limit. So when he feels that his person has used up or deserves to be freed a little more, then he lengthens the rope because he has finished eating whatever he had to. So he says, now the cow is hungry, his capacity is more, so I'll release that rope and increase the length by another 10 meters so that it can have a bigger area to move about. So Thakur is explaining, it is both free will is there, but it's a limited free will. And if you say God's will, yes, it is also God's will. So we have to reconcile. It's not just that everything is God's will. It is God's will. But does the cow realize that? No, it thinks, no, I shall move within this circle. That much freedom it gives. If there is no responsibility given to the jiva, then if everything is free will, if that idea is so deep in somebody, then you can't control his actions. Then he will say, I'm not responsible for anything. Because God wants that agency to be there, that responsibility to be taken. Only when he attains to a state where he feels that in spite of all my efforts, in spite of all that I struggles that I do to gather well, to collect all these things I have to leave behind, at that time he realizes God has got, Ishwara has got these things done through me. I have been an instrument, but I have been a foolish instrument because at the end of Kala, as Kala, he is going to devour everything. And though I don't want to, I have to leave everything behind. So that free will forces that person to earn more money, more property. But if he doesn't put a check to that, that is what Gita is all about, that you know your limitations, just be an instrument. Don't try to take the agency. He says, na, everybody thinks that he is going to conquer the other enemy and rule over the kingdom. Kauravas have not come to lose the battle. They also came with the intention. But the Lord says, I know what is going to happen. I know who's going to die. Everything has been predetermined from his point of view. But from the point of view of Kauravas or Pandavas, that will is still free.
So to summarize then, so based on our past conditioning.
Yes, yes, exactly. It's
Within
based.
the Prakriti, our vasanas will come up
Exactly,
from the subconscious to the conscious.
Yes.
But then we have got the free will to say that whether we convert that conscious thought into action,
yes,
or
that
we
wisdom.
actually, change our vasanas so that they go much more mild.
Much more.
Much milder.
That is the role of buddhi. It's the role of buddhi to understand it. The sooner the better. No. One more? What is that?
It says, we discussed that God is time, but when we meditate, we try to achieve timelessness.
Exactly.
So there is a paradox in this in how to.
Yeah, God is, see, God in his manifest, here you have to understand. Sri Krishna is very clearly, because Arjuna did not ask him for his real nature. Till verse 33, he was content. He wanted to see the Vishwarupa. He didn't say, show me your timeless form. So first, whatever the devotee asks, if the devotee says, as I told you, that person who is dying, if he says, I want a red to dye my cloth with the green color, he will do it. He will not ask you to change. Why do you want green? The Lord doesn't, if you have desires, Lord will fulfill them. So he is not saying, he says, as time, Mahakala, all these foolish people, that's why he calls them foolish. He doesn't call them wise people. The people who tried for timelessness, they are the wise ones. And they want to conquer death. That is what Yama also told Nachiketa in the Kathopanishad, that only a few ones, few dhira, kaschit dhira, antaratmanam aikshat avrutta chakshu, they realizing the timeless nature of the self, want to understand that I want to conquer death. I don't want to be a victim of time. I want that timeless nature. That is why he went to the king of death. He told his father, you have cursed me, but I am going to the right place because you are not going to give me the answer to my question. Is there timelessness? Is there eternal life? If there is eternal life, you tell me. That is a 14-year-old boy. He had the wisdom. So there is no conflict. In meditation, if you are aiming for timelessness, that is the goal of life. But it is very difficult because we again have to think of time when we come to the gross plane. That is what Arjuna is being told by Krishna, that I am Mahakala, don't worry. You think you are beyond time, but it is not so. You are still, as long as you are fighting this war, time will kill everyone. Whoever is destined to die, time will kill. But timelessness is those who are wise enough and attain timelessness even while this body exists, they are known as Jivan Muktas. They become free. Okay? Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.